Hello and welcome to the Lund University International Podcast. On the show, you'll hear from current students, alumni, researchers, professors, and many more special guests as we explore what it's really like to live, study, and work at Lund University, a world top 100 university. My name is Meg, and I am a current student in the Masters of Applied Cultural Analysis program from Seattle, USA, as well as a student worker here in the External Relations Office. Today, we're talking about one of Scandinavia's most vibrant cities, Copenhagen. Just a short ride across the Öresund Bridge, Copenhagen is easily accessible to all Lund University students, offering endless opportunities for both study and professional experiences. We'll chat about everything from navigating internships and exchanges to daily life, first impressions, career impacts, and even some insider advice for anyone planning to study or work there. Whether you're curious about cross-border opportunities or just want to hear some inspiring stories, this episode has you covered. So let's dive in. We have two lovely guests in the studio with us today. If you guys could go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Rugare. I'm from Zimbabwe, but you can call me Ru for short, a lot easier. I'm studying a 2-year master's in strategic communication, and I did an internship with the UN in Copenhagen.
Awesome.
Nice. I'm Natalie. I'm from the UK, and I'm doing a master's at LUCEM, and I once did an exchange in my bachelor's in Copenhagen.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining us today. We're so excited to have you. I guess we will just kick off. You kind of already shared what brought you to Copenhagen, but how did you get those opportunities? What made you choose Copenhagen?
Yeah, so with my master's, the autumn semester of my second year is either an option for classes or you can do an internship. And I kind of wanted to get out and about and see more. So the UN's pretty competitive. So you pretty much just go on their portal and apply. Mm. But I think the beauty of UN City, which is where I was, they have multiple UN agencies and they are quite used to having students already as their interns from Copenhagen Business School or from Lund. And so it's almost a very natural kind of relationship to apply and then come over. Yeah.
That sounds super exciting. For me, it was sort of less exciting. It was just, part of my university degree at the time to apply, and they had lots of different options. But I really wanted to go somewhere which was a bit different culturally and somewhere I hadn't really been to much before. Being in the UK, I've of course been on holiday to Italy, France, Spain, all those sorts of things. But I wanted something a bit more culturally different, and that's why I chose Copenhagen.
Okay. And can you share your experience during this internship a little more? What did your day-to-day look like? Did you live in Lund and commute to Copenhagen, or did you live in Copenhagen?
Yeah, so I live in a bit of a beach town. I live in Lomma, so 10 minutes from Lund, 10 minutes from Malmö, and then it's about an hour and a half to Copenhagen. So my commute was pretty long.
Oh, that's...
Yeah, not so fun that way. But, when you ride the Öresund, it's a straight shot. So it was literally from door to door. And UN City is in a part of Copenhagen called Nordhavn. And if you're into anything environmental, sustainability, especially anything to do with water, that's the place you want to be. So yeah, the commute was manageable. But I think the thing to really get prepared was the weather. It's like all seasons every day. So you just kind of take everything you can with you. Yeah.
I always joke, if you don't bring your umbrella in Sweden or in Copenhagen, of course, it's going to rain. But if you have it, then it won't.
Isn't that wild?
It's wild.
I totally believe in it.
Yeah. And Natalie, you seem surprised. Did you live in Copenhagen during your internship? Or?
Yeah, I did. It was quite nice, and I lived, luckily, quite close to the school in school-provided housing, so very much a walk. But it didn't make it sort of feel like I was a local there, since I was sort of living quite in a local neighbourhood. But Nordhavn, that you mentioned, is one of my favourites as well because it's so close to the water and it feels really modern there. So that must have been so fun.
Yeah, and especially if you're into they have kind of a bit of everything, right? Like these cute little cafes in the way you think, right? Like sort of postcard cute. But also this really cool cruise from Copenhagen to Oslo, and you can do it in 2 days.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's so true. I've always been meaning to do that.
So definitely worth it if you kind of want to expand a little bit further and explore more of Scandinavia. But they pretty much bring sort of all worlds to you right there. So that was a cool experience.
Yeah.
And especially when I started, it was in the early sort of late summer, autumn. And so in Nordhaven, you can actually like free swim. They just have
It's one of my favorite things to do. Yeah.
Just jump off and go.
Great thing about Copenhagen that all their waters around, not just in Nordhavn and other bits of the city, you can just swim. I mean, I would only do it in the summer because it's kind of cold, but I have seen some people. I went for like a brunch there in November or something, and there were people who were properly, like quite a few people just swimming around. So I guess you can do it all year round.
Yeah.
Half of my classes were in Copenhagen. My degree is split between Copenhagen and Lund. And every time the Copenhagen side invited us to do something, it was like, do you guys want to go swimming? And we're like, Hopping on, for our listeners that may have heard Rue mention the Öresundståg, that is the train that connects Sweden and Denmark over the Öresund Bridge. Hopping on the Öresundståg soaking wet did not sound like a good time, so we never got around to it, but sounds like maybe it might be worth a go, Natalie.
Maybe in the summer.
Maybe in the summer. So keeping on that subject, what else did you guys love about Copenhagen? What really drew you there? What made your days bright while you were studying there?
I think in general, it has a bit more of a relaxed pace than what I'm used to. And there's sort of lots of stuff going on in terms of people. It's quite busy, but like in quite a chill way. Don't know if that makes sense, but you know, like you'll just go wandering after school or after class or whatever, and you walk down a random street and there's always some sort of bar, cafe, you know, something, and there's always people sitting outside, kind of no matter the weather. You know, maybe there's like a blanket over them if it's cold, or you know, and they're just sitting there chatting. It's sort of quite a nice sort of like hygge culture, I guess, or cozy, which I think is really special. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree about that sort of cozy feel. You definitely feel it when the weather changes, right? Because, you know, they're putting candles up, there's like light festivals and all of this. But even before then, like on the sunny days, they're very social that way.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of surprised me because like you can say hi and stuff to like people on your way, you know, in and out of the train or to work, whereas I feel like in Sweden, it's slightly different that like people do enjoy much more their personal space. And because also like Copenhagen is much more of a major city, I think they're so much more used to like that sort of volume of like diversity and moving and like different people. So it's not such a big thing. But I would say like one of the things I really enjoyed actually was like biking. Because, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Respect.
The bike rush hour terrifies me in Copenhagen. So kudos to you for braving it because it looks great, but I couldn't be part.
No, it is pretty intense. It feels like a peloton, like as you go. But it was, I don't know, I think it is the rush, you know. So lots of foot traffic. It's very flat, so like you can get everywhere. Mm-hmm. But like there's just something about biking because the scenery is so beautiful. And you're kind of going at speed, but not too fast. Like in a car, you kind of can't take it in, but on a bike you can. So I really enjoyed that. And then I would just think, I mean, a little more specific to my internship. So being in UN City, it itself is, you know, model UN SDGs, right? And so it's you're at work in the office, but your office is a museum. So there's always people. I mean, they're not like standing at you guys.
Staring at you like one of the ideas.
There's an intern working here, no.
You know, but there is quite a lot that they do these tours every Friday. And if you're interested, they're free. So especially for students, they just encourage like the more the merrier. Yeah. But they do it for like little kids, grown-ups, everybody. And so that experience as well of to see how the SDGs, because, you know, we talk a lot about sustainability, I think, especially in the Nordics, but to see it happen. So, you know, you have WHO and they're talking about like health and well-being. And then you'd have like, let's say a seminar right downstairs where they're like doing massages and breathing techniques and things like that. So I feel like having a workspace, like you were saying, that you're at work and it is super fast. I won't lie, the UN does not play, but it's also, it's Nordic. So you're taking breaks, you're looking after yourself. 3 days a week in office, 2 days you're at home or wherever you want to be. So it's that balance is nice. Yeah.
And Rue, you started kind of on an interesting subject, and that was actually going to be my next question. Having both experienced Swedish life and life in Copenhagen, would you say that there were any similarities or differences that you noticed between the two?
I think the difference is I found Swedes are a lot kinder, like they tend to be a lot warmer. And maybe it is because on this side also of the bridge, it's smaller cities in comparison to Copenhagen, which is a major city, right? The Danes are very direct and they it can feel abrasive if you're not used to it, but there's something kind of nice about that level of authenticity because you know where they stand. But once you're friends, or like once you've hung out a little bit, then they really let you in. So I thought that was really nice. But I think I guess I got to see the contrast, but I didn't have to miss Sweden because I was living here and commuting. And so I still got like all my Swedish joy. I got like all my fika, I got to like do Lucia. But as much as I was working, I was also still a student. So I feel like there wasn't, let's say, there's a pressure obviously because you still perform to some extent. They have a review and stuff. But I could just socialize. And that was actually a really big part of the internship. Yeah, you're networking. Yeah.
And I think I was just thinking about it. I think it comes down a lot to food and sort of flavor profiles. And I kind of thought, Malmö, Lund, the distance between Malmö, Lund and Copenhagen is not that much. So I thought it would be quite similar. But actually, I don't think it is. But not that that's a bad thing. I think it's great. And I think with Copenhagen, there's much more vibrant, like lots more like fusion food and that sort of element, whereas sort of Lund and Malmö and that part of Sweden, at least that's all I know really, is much more focused on sort of like local traditions. Like I can see it in the bakeries, when I go by, it's very seasonal. Like, now there's like semlas on every corner, which is sort of like a cream pastry, which is really, really nice. And there's like lots of pear and raspberry flavored things everywhere. And when it was around Christmas time, saffron was just everywhere in every single bakery. Whereas I think Denmark in general is a bit less like that and is a bit less seasonal and is a lot more focused on, can we mix Japanese and Peruvian food together? And most of the best food I've ever had has been in Copenhagen, so maybe I'm biased. But
do you have a favorite restaurant that you can recommend to our listeners?
So difficult.
Who's your favorite child? Yeah.
One thing I really love about Copenhagen, and again, it kind of goes back to the more chilled vibe that we spoke about earlier, is brunch. They have a lot of great brunch places over there, and I guess to pick one there's this brunch place called Wolf and Constantly. There's a few around Copenhagen, so spoil it for choice, and they're always in very neighborhoody parts of Copenhagen, which I quite like. And at this place you can choose from sort of like a long list. You pick 5 different items, and that can be fruit, it can be sort of meat items, bread items, so like pastries, whatever you like, and it's a set price. So everyone can get exactly what they want, which is ideal when you're sort of friends with sort of people with different dietary requirements, or they just like different things. And everyone can have a great time, and everything is super fresh, sort of seasonal. By trying to sort of bring sort of locally sourced flavors in mind. So in Denmark, parsley is like a big herb. So a lot of stuff is like parsley flavored and stuff, or dill and things like that. So every single time I go, it's great.
Yeah. I kind of want to jump on that though, as you are talking about the flavors and the food. One huge difference, and the Danish will let you know, the sandwiches.
Oh yeah.
Danish sandwiches are not Swedish sandwiches.
No, that's so true.
No, they pile them high. It's an experience, so you definitely have to.
I'm gonna butcher it, but it's like smørrebrød, right?
But it's like what they show the tourists and like the pretty food halls, and what like actual Danish people eat for lunch look entirely different. It's like everything you think wouldn't go on a sandwich goes on the sandwich, and it doesn't look great, but they are convinced it tastes good, so
so we let them have it.
But it's not aesthetic, it's not cute, it's just
dig in
nutrition.
I'm totally with you on that point about restaurants though, because whenever I'm specifically craving something, like hot pot was the one for last month. It's like, I want hot pot so bad. And I looked it up. I was like, of course, it's nearby, but nearby in Copenhagen.
Of course.
And it's so fun. Like, I'm not from Europe either. I'm from the United States. And so the idea of like, let me just cross over the border and like
weird, isn't it?
Go to this restaurant and then cross back an hour later. Like, it's really kind of exciting. And it's so funny, all of the points that you guys bring up, because I feel like when you're outside of Scandinavia, I don't know if you had this experience as well, but we have the tendency to kind of just group them all together. Denmark is similar to Norway, similar to Sweden. They're all the happiest countries in the world, right? We kind of look, and then when you get here, there's that very strong sense of identity where they're, don't you dare compare me to the other side. We're different, right?
Yeah.
So you get used to that a little bit, right? The pride from both sides.
And it's interesting actually that you say that about the pride, because like I remember at work, like, okay, it's a very multicultural environment. So it's kind of nice. You kind of are bringing and sharing, but you are still in Copenhagen. You are in the Nordics, right? And I don't know how to express it, but it's very clear that this is Denmark, you know, because like on the one hand, right, everybody, they speak English, but like everybody is speaking Danish.
Yeah.
Even at work and like in the emails and stuff. And also like the way they kind of like ingratiate you to like the culture, like socially. So I know like we were talking a little bit earlier about at lunch you have a beer and it's not a thing, but like beer, you drink beer in Copenhagen like you drink water with your side, you know. So it's such a, you just know that this is Denmark, and they bring you into that very, very clearly. So I kind of like that actually.
They're very quick to sort of bring you into any cultural event or thing that's happening. It's sort of like they try and show you whatever their local practices. Or for example, something that's coming up now is like Fastelavn, which is kind of like what do you call it? It's like a kind of like carnival. It's mainly celebrated by kids, but there's a pastry that goes along with it. Like every typical Scandinavian holiday, there's always some sort of pastry that goes along with a special day. And I remember when I was doing my exchange and it was coming round, and they provided all of us exchange students one for free, and I just sort of thought that was quite nice. So like, we really want you to learn, and so therefore here you go. Here's some pastry. Eat the pastry. We watch you eat the pastry. But no, it's really nice, and they sort of tell you what's going on, what's sort of traditional, what's not. And I think that's quite interesting, because I think in the UK that doesn't happen at all.
And Ru, you brought up something else that's quite interesting, because we get this question a lot from prospective students that want to study in Sweden about learning Swedish. So for you two, did you learn a little bit of Danish when you went over or while you were on the job, or what was that experience like for you?
I think I still had a very international experience in that like I didn't necessarily have to learn Danish, but it is around you, and especially like your coworkers when you go out and about. So I think it helped that, you know, I do live in Sweden and I have been taking S5E. And so when I went over, I mean, Danish is very different. It sounds very different from Swedish, but there's certain structural things that are similar. And so it was kind of easy to say very basic things, you know, or like when they're having the announcements on the train and whatever, you can understand it. But I would say it's so international. You wouldn't need to worry. But I do think if you make the effort, like they really appreciate it. And not because like, I mean, you have to, but I think it's just that sense of you are showing that you are there now, you know, rather than sort of like standing apart. So, yeah.
I think it's kind of, I like what you said, but I also think sometimes like I learned a little bit of Danish while I was there, because since I was there through the Erasmus scheme, there was a portal that you could go on and learn whatever language that was relevant to where you're studying. I don't know if they still do it now, but I was doing that at the time. But I did find that it was sometimes quite difficult. Like you might go and think, oh, I know the vocab now to order a cappuccino at a coffee shop, and then you say it and you're maybe 80-85% of the way there with the pronunciation, but not 100%, and they would look at you like they didn't understand what you were saying, and then they'd repeat it back and it sounds almost the same to you, but it, you know, so I think it is nice to try and speak Danish, but sort of also keep in mind that maybe sometimes they don't always understand, and it makes total sense, right? Like English is my first language, and I'm used to lots of people speaking English in different accents because English is such a common language, but I think not that many people try and learn a Scandinavian language like Danish or Swedish, so I think they're less used to hearing someone not pronounce it correctly, so just keep that in mind. But I still think it's worth learning it.
Yeah, so Danglish then is the way to go. A little mixture between the Danish and the English is enough to them. Yeah. Perfect. And I'm sure as people are listening, they're probably maybe getting a little bit interested in following the pathway that you two have taken. So what did it look like, your application for these internships? What was the process? How long did it take?
So I would say my process took about 5 months because, you know, I'd had my first year of my master's, and then the department was like, you guys are adults, go find your internship. So I think it's beautiful, but it's a bit of a challenge, right? Especially if you, for example, are expecting them to like show you how to do the CV and where to find the internships. Like, at least in the Department of Strategic Communication, there is no list. It's free flow.
Yeah.
Obviously, it has to match what you're learning, but you find it yourself. And so in some ways, that made it maybe a little bit longer. But I had already, in like my bachelor's and that, like there was a point where I'd worked for about a year. And so I had some interaction with the UN before when I was in New York. And so in no way am I saying that like the references cross over. They don't, because every sort of application is brand new. But it's just to say, if you have some kind of UN experience or some touch point, it helps you because you're going in speaking the language, kind of aware of what the expectations are. And so pretty much just went into the portal. I would say it's really good if you, depending on the agency, because it's not one size fits all, you have to tailor it to the agency style in a way. And then, of course, the position. But once you're in, you just kind of go through the interview processes. And then the starting kind of differs because it's like I needed it to be academic and then also do some work for them. So it's very different from a purely academic internship. And the thing is also mine was paid, which was super nice.
No kidding.
Yeah. If you want to, there you go. But then because of that, you do have hours that, okay, you agree kind of what you're going to do when your hours are school time, but what are your hours when you are there full time for them? And they're pretty easy about like negotiating that. But I think it meant a lot of time management on my part because it's like up at 6, commute, work my 9 to 3. As soon as I'm back on the train, I'm back in like student mode and then school. So that part was tough. I think you have to have stamina. You do. But I think because we are still in Scandinavia, there's going to still be a lot of that focus on your work-life balance. So as long as you also, it might take a bit of time because I also come from a culture that's very indirect. Like Shona people in Zimbabwe are like, I kind of won't ask for anything. I'll just kind of implicitly assume you get what I mean.
Yeah.
But it's in Denmark, just be direct, be proactive. And for the most part, you can kind of negotiate your way through. So it's very relationship based, which I think was surprising, but it sorts out a lot.
Nice. I don't know. Well, because my exchange sort of experience was before I went to Lund, so I don't want to say how it is at Lund because I'm not quite sure. But I think in general, a few tips to bear in mind if you want to do exchange is know if there's going to be any grade requirements, sort of like an average that we need to meet. Some schools are more competitive than other schools, so you want to know. Also, you want to know specifically for Denmark, which universities actually offer the program that you're interested in. So, for example, they have a technical university, which obviously will have mainly like engineering degrees and things like that. But if you study business, they probably don't have anything for you and so on. So sort of do your research. And yeah, I totally back what you say. Be proactive and also don't be afraid to reach out because I think we are exactly what you said, be direct. Like there's a lot that you could ask for if you just email or talk to them. You actually get a surprising amount of info and feedback from them that you wouldn't necessarily expect. And another thing I'd say is, generally speaking, the Danish universities don't really offer that much accommodation. So the one I went to, there was sort of like a lottery system. And if you were lucky, you kind of got it, but there wasn't enough for everyone. So bear in mind that, accommodation might not be so easy. And if you're in Lund studying and you want to go to Copenhagen, maybe you want to stay in your room. But then again, like you said, time management, really important about that. But I would also say that the difference between studying in Lund and studying in Denmark is, I'd say that you will find work-life balance a lot easier in the Danish universities, shall we say. It's not as intensive because a lot of people have part-time jobs, student jobs, things like that to balance around. So my schedule, at least when I was there, was a lot less hectic than my schedule now. So it is completely doable, is what I'm trying to say, if you do have to do that commute back and forth.
Perfect. Those were amazing tips. Thank you both so much. Before we end this off, is there anything else you feel like you'd like to add, or do you think that was kind of your...
I mean, I think dive in is literally, if you want to be in Nordhaven.
Yeah.
But really, like, with the people, with the culture, it is going to be weird and strange. And I know one of the things I was a bit self-conscious initially, because I was like, culturally so different. I don't speak the language. And you can get a bit stuck, right? If you're worried too much about expectations. But the beautiful thing, I think, about Copenhagen is people really don't care. Like, being popular, all of that stuff, like, it's much more important to just be you. So I think it's a really great, if you have some time to be like reflexive, figure out you, like, what do you actually like? Not what if people told you like, or like things you want to see because it was advertised. Like, who are you and what are you about? And then bring that. And I think it'll be a lot easier, especially if you are interested in either staying longer term, because like that authenticity side, especially of the Danes, is real. Yes is yes, no is no. I like you as I like you. I don't as I don't, But I would also say be aware of like, I guess the exchange rate, in the sense that Sweden, and especially like being somewhere like Lund and Malmo, they tend to be a bit more geared towards students, right? So it's much more affordable, I would say. I mean, it's still expensive because it's Scandinavia, but much more affordable. Copenhagen is a major city and in Scandinavia, so it can be quite expensive. Especially like, you don't have to worry about tipping and things, but it's just, that cost side can get you.
The Danish crown is quite strong.
Yeah.
So whenever the Copenhagen side came to Lund for their studies of my program, we'd always say, do you want to go out after? Do you want to do something? And they're always like, nope, we're going grocery shopping, so that they could bring groceries back to Copenhagen with them. Like, wow. All right, we respect that. Yeah. Natalie, any final tips for our listeners?
Yeah, I think just one thing, if you have the opportunity, see it for yourself. I like what you said about sort of know who you are and what you value. Like, it's quite a flat hierarchy structure in Denmark. It's quite direct, as you were saying, and is a lot more laid back, potentially, see if those sort of qualities suit you or not. But I'd say the best way to figure it out, especially if you're a Lund student already, is just go see it for yourself. It's not too bad. Going over the bridge takes about an hour. So I'd say just go see it for yourself, and you never know, you might like it.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you both so much for joining me today in the studio. It was a lovely chat.
Oh, sure.
And best of luck in your future endeavors.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Lund University International Podcast. If you're interested in learning more about Lund University, you can go to our website, lunduniversity.lu.se. You can also follow us on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and X, and you can connect with our amazing student ambassadors on Unibuddy. Don't forget to subscribe, and we look forward to bringing you a new episode very soon.